it is almost like borderline disturbing how acclimated everyone has gotten to the idea that, you know what, I've got 700, I've got 1,000, I've got all these dollar figures that other people say, hey, that's my rent.
The latest data from Edmunds is sending shockwaves through the automotive world. Just when you thought you understood the car market, new findings have emerged that could change everything. Are we witnessing a fundamental transformation in how Americans approach car ownership? What exactly is going on, and why should every car buyer and manufacturer be paying attention? What's happening? Recent insights from Edmunds have shaken up the automotive landscape, highlighting critical trends that reveal a deep affordability crisis impacting a large chunk of American consumers. If you're in the market for a car, it's hard to overlook the drastic reality. A staggering 73% of Americans now consider the idea of buying a vehicle to be completely out of reach. This statistic doesn't just echo in empty showrooms, it resonates with the frustration and dismay of countless potential buyers. Layering on top of this is a massive discrepancy between what people expect to pay and the harsh reality they're facing. Right now, the average transaction price for a new car has shot up to over $47,000, while the majority of consumers still hope to spend around $30,000 when searching for their next ride. Let's break this down and really understand what's happening in the world of car buying today. But before you dive into that, subscribe to our channel and hit that like button while you're at it. Affordability crisis. One of the most glaring issues is the skyrocketing prices of vehicles. Since 2019, we've seen average new car prices climb by approximately 30%, catapulting the average cost to a jaw-dropping $48,000. This dramatic rise isn't happenstance. It's rooted in tangible disruptions that have rippled through the market. Supply chain challenges triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic, the ongoing inflationary pressures that seem to touch everything from groceries to gas, and our resurgence in consumer demand all contribute to this unsettling price hike. As consumer confidence returns, so too does the desire for new vehicles. But that demand is colliding head-on with limited supplies and rising costs. Speaking of supply, let's not overlook the inventory challenges facing dealerships nationwide. Historically, North American inventory levels have floated comfortably between 3 and 4 million cars. Yet recent projections indicate that we might be entering a new norm, with inventory levels dropping to about 2.5 million units. This significantly reduced inventory exacerbates the price issue, as the demand, unmet, drives prices even higher. It's almost like a perfect storm for buyers. With fewer cars to choose from, competition heats up and pushes everyone to reconsider just how much they're willing to spend. Then we have the financial pressures building up like a balloon about to burst. As interest rates rise, many consumers find themselves grappling with monthly payments that are becoming increasingly untenable. It's alarming to note that around 15% of new vehicle buyers are now financing cars with monthly payments exceeding $1,000. Imagine the strain that puts on household budgets. That's like adding another mortgage payment onto an already stretched financial situation. For many shoppers, these costs morph from mere inconveniences into major obstacles, forcing them to reconsider their budgets and options entirely. Now let's dive into one of the more enlightening aspects of this issue: the stark contrast between consumer expectations and market realities. It's a disconnect that's more than just numbers on a page. It's a very real part of the car buying experience that leaves many feeling baffled. Price disparity. According to a recent survey, nearly 48% of new car shoppers are determined to spend $35,000 or less on their next vehicle, and 14% are aiming even lower, hoping to snag a car for $20,000 or less. However, reality paints a different picture altogether. The average transaction price for new vehicles stands at approximately $47,716, which is a far cry from expectations. To add insult to injury, there are practically zero transactions occurring under the $20,000 mark. When prospective buyers step into dealerships hoping to find their dream car within their budgets, they're met with a disheartening reality that often leaves them feeling completely defeated. Don't think the used vehicle market is much kinder. It paints a similar picture. Many hopeful buyers are also expressing a desire to spend less than $20,000 on a used vehicle, but only about 5% of transactions in July 2023 fell within this desired price range. Meanwhile, the average transaction price for used cars has climbed to around $26,936. This trend further amplifies the disconnect between what consumers hope for and what the market has to offer. It's almost like buyers have to completely rethink their approach, buckle up, and prepare for the reality check of financial limitations. Consumers' reaction. The sentiment among consumers is overwhelmingly negative and charged with frustration. Those who have returned to the car market after several years are expressing disbelief at the prices they encounter. Many remember a time when buying a car felt exciting and manageable. Jessica Caldwell, the head of insights at Edmunds, highlights that many consumers' perceptions have been skewed based on car buying experiences that date back to 2018. If you're gauging your expectations on outdated notions of price, it can be jarring to confront the harsh financial demands of today's market. Anecdotes suggest that families are increasingly putting off vehicle purchases entirely or settling for older models simply because they can't reach the financial demands of newer options. Picture this: one consumer recounted the frustration of visiting multiple dealerships only to find that vehicles that fell within their budget were either completely sold out or priced far beyond their means. What's supposed to be a practical transaction, a strategic choice in personal mobility, quickly morphs into a stressful scavenger hunt with increasingly limited options. And let's not overlook the emotional dimensions of this crisis. Imagine families grappling with difficult choices daily. Should they prioritize housing, healthcare, or, heaven forbid, secure, reliable transportation? The emotional impact looms heavily as the pressure of these financial decisions takes a toll on household dynamics. It's a trying time for many, highlighting how intertwined financial choices around car buying are with other essential life needs. The used car crisis. The landscape of the used car market has transformed into a treacherous maze for consumers, with steeply rising prices combined with relentless economic pressures creating an almost insurmountable obstacle course. Picture this. Recent statistics show that nearly half of all consumers believe they need to take on a second job just to afford a used car. This startling revelation underscores the gravity of the situation. While there are whispers of improved affordability in the new vehicle market, the reality is that the used car sector remains fraught with obstacles, leaving a multitude of buyers feeling utterly disillusioned. The gap between what consumers expect and the harsh reality they encounter is further widened by the average age of trade-in vehicles, which has now surpassed 6 years. This alarming trend cultivates unrealistic consumer expectations, heavily influenced by outdated pricing paradigms from the past. Turning our attention to the job market, it becomes evident that financial strain weighs heavily on consumers. Many feel an urgent need to seek additional sources of income merely to keep pace with the costs associated with purchasing a used vehicle. The pressures are not just from within the car market. Inflation is impacting every corner of daily life. Think about rising costs for essentials like food, housing, and childcare. As these expenses climb higher and higher, disposable income dwindles, leading countless individuals to consider taking on second jobs just to manage essential purchases, including cars. On top of this, there is the stark reality of rising prices. Over recent years, the average price of used vehicles has skyrocketed, creating a scenario where the average consumer struggles to identify affordable options. Reports suggest that new car prices have stabilized somewhat, thanks in part to increased inventory and dealer incentives. But the used car market remains unpredictable and costly. Each day brings new challenges, as would-be buyers grapple with soaring prices and limited opportunities. In a world where owning a reliable vehicle is considered essential, the hurdles keep stacking up, leaving many in a state of uncertainty. Market disconnect. Now let's dive into the stark contrast between the newfound affordability in the new vehicle market and the myriad challenges plaguing the used car sector. On one hand, we've seen promising signs in the new vehicle scene. Think increased inventory and enticing promotional incentives designed to draw in buyers. But on the flip side, the used car market remains stubbornly resistant to these positive shifts, stuck in its own web of complications. Now let's talk about supply, or rather the shrinkage of it. The pool of older used cars is dwindling, and it's no mere coincidence. Stricter emission regulations are playing the villain in this plot, forcing older models off the roads and out of circulation at an alarming rate. As the number of available vehicles shrinks, the prices of the remaining cars begin to climb. This sharp price hike presents a significant barrier for consumers desperately hunting for budget-friendly options. Imagine someone trying to find an affordable used car, only to encounter increasing sticker prices that make their heart sink. Frustration is just the tip of the iceberg. iceberg. Then there's the relentless issue of price volatility. Anyone who has dipped their toes into the used car market knows it's infamous for its wild price swings. These upheavals can be traced back to an array of influences, from fluctuating demand and wavering economic conditions to the cyclical nature of seasonal trends. When manufacturers roll out new vehicle incentives, interest in nearly new used cars tends to wane. This shift subsequently wreaks havoc on prices, leading to even more unpredictable variations that keep buyers on the edge of their seats, unsure of what they'll pay tomorrow. Now let's dig into a reality that's hitting many people hard: negative equity. A significant number of consumers who made vehicle purchases during that pandemic-induced buying frenzy are waking up to a troubling realization. They find themselves grappling with negative equity situations. Essentially, their trade-in values on these vehicles are lower than the remaining balances on their loans. This scenario isn't just disheartening, it adds layers of complexity to an already daunting process. For many, making the leap to a new vehicle or even a more affordable used option becomes an uphill battle. The sheer prospect of transitioning to a better financial situation grows murky and frustrating. The typical age of trading cars has now surpassed 6 years. This shift has profound implications for what consumers expect when they step into the market. It's not just a little bump in age, it represents a seismic change in the dynamics of buying and selling vehicles. Let's take a closer look at unrealistic pricing expectations. Expectation versus reality. Many consumers entering the used car market are haunted by memories of more favorable times, when prices were significantly lower and you could snag a decent deal without breaking the bank. But here's the kicker: the average transaction price for used cars is now hovering around a whopping $26,000. When faced with this grim reality, it's no wonder that buyers' preconceived notions about what they should be paying often spiral into a whirlwind of disappointment. People expect bargains, but the current market doesn't seem to be in the mood to cooperate. As these hopeful buyers prepare to make their move, they are often met with the bitter taste of disappointment. They step into the market embracing aspirations of finding reliable vehicles at prices that won't have them gasping for breath. But reality rarely aligns with those dreams. Instead, they're confronted with inflated costs that consistently exceed their budgets. Imagine walking into a car dealership ready to negotiate, only to discover that the price tags are so daunting that you feel like you've just stumbled into a luxury shindig rather than a sensible car buying environment. This disconnect between what consumers anticipate and the actual market conditions fosters a sense of frustration that can be hard to shake off. In some cases, it even discourages buyers from engaging in the entire buying process altogether. So how do consumers respond to this bewildering landscape? In a bid to regain control, many are reassessing their purchasing strategies and shopping habits. Some opt to embrace older models, perhaps clinging. Others are seeking solace in alternative modes of transportation. Think public transit or ride-sharing services. Why commit to a car that comes with financial strains when you can hop on a bus or catch a ride? These trends highlight a significant shift in consumer behavior, a need to adapt to the new reality instead of clinging to outdated expectations. The recent insights from Edmunds lay bare this situation, revealing a significant visual mismatch that underscores the myriad challenges confronting potential car buyers. Let me explain. A tale of two charts. Let's talk about the concept of visual mismatch and the gap between aspirations and reality. Edmunds' eye-catching charts vividly illustrate this disparity, shedding light on the stark differences between what consumers wish to spend and what they actually find in the market. For instance, nearly 15% of consumers express a strong desire to purchase new vehicles priced under $20,000. However, the reality is bleak. There are virtually no new cars available at that price point. This chasm between expectation and reality leaves many frustrated and disillusioned as they navigate the treacherous waters of purchasing options. Now, let's dive deeper into the used vehicle market, where the landscape is even more dire. An astonishing 50% of consumers are in the market for vehicles priced at $15,000 or less, yet only about 15% of actual transactions occur within this budget-friendly range. This staggering discrepancy highlights not only the glaring lack of affordable options, but also shines a spotlight on the growing obstacles that budget-conscious consumers must contend with. When the aspirations of half the market clash so dramatically with reality, it's no wonder that many feel like they're searching for a needle in a haystack. The disparity becomes even clearer when we contrast consumer aspirations with the current state of new vehicle availability. The automotive industry has undergone a seismic shift in inventory dynamics since the pandemic, and what was once accessible has become elusive. While there are optimistic reports suggesting improved affordability for new new cars. These enhancements have not translated into lower prices for those entry-level models that so many consumers seek. Consequently, a significant number of buyers find themselves locked out of the market entirely, unable to access vehicles that resonate with their financial realities. Adding to the confusion are the high average transaction prices for new vehicles, which hover around $47,716, a number that dwarfs what many consumers are willing or able to pay. This creates a paradox in which consumer expectations are grounded in historical pricing trends that simply don't reflect the current market climate. Imagine staring at the car of your dreams with a price tag that feels like a punch in the gut. It's frustrating, disheartening, and often leads to a sense of helplessness. When we turn our gaze to the used vehicle limitations, another layer of complexity emerges. The average age of trade-in vehicles has now exceeded 6 years, leading to a marketplace populated with older models that may not meet consumer expectations for reliability or maintenance costs. New buyers entering the scene may harbor skewed perceptions from their past experiences, often remembering previous purchases that were newer and lower in price. Unfortunately, this nostalgia doesn't square with the older models they now face. Higher maintenance costs emerge as another major hurdle. As consumers are forced toward these older vehicles due to budget constraints, they often find themselves grappling with escalating maintenance expenses tied to upkeep on these aging cars. The Car Conundrum. The implications of this mismatch are far-reaching and profound. An increasing number of consumers report feeling the weight of financial strain, often feeling compelled to delay their purchases or make sacrifices in other areas of their lives just to afford a vehicle. According to Edmunds data, over 73% of respondents have postponed buying a car due to sky-high prices, while more than 62% cite high interest rates as significant barriers to entry. The stress of it all is palpable. It's not just a car, it's a lifeline. As buyers traverse this complicated landscape, they frequently find themselves making difficult trade-offs. Many are forced to consider brands or older models that don't align with their initial desires, leading to compromises that may have lasting implications on their satisfaction and needs. It's a tough pill to swallow for anyone hoping to make a confident purchase. Finally, we need to consider the broader economic impact of these challenges. The struggles faced by consumers in securing affordable transportation extend beyond individual experiences. They ripple out into the community. Reliable vehicles are not just about personal convenience. They're crucial for accessing employment opportunities and essential services. Without affordable options, individuals may find themselves facing barriers to economic mobility and long-term stability. Interest rate. The economic landscape is undergoing a seismic shift driven by skyrocketing interest rates, and it's triggering a full-blown affordability crisis in the automotive market. Imagine trying to buy a car while the walls are closing in on your finances. As consumers wrestle with the staggering financial implications of these rising rates, the chasm between what they expect and what they actually find has dramatically widened. This predicament creates a minefield for both new and used car buyers, and things get even trickier thanks to lenders who seem to have a soft spot for high credit borrowers, effectively locking many people out of affordable financing options. Let's dig deeper into how interest rates are wreaking havoc on affordability. These rising rates have quickly morphed into a critical factor for consumers, and the impact is hard to ignore. To put things into perspective, consider the historical context. Over the past few years, the Federal Reserve has unleashed a flurry of rate hikes in a bid to combat inflation. This has led to a sharp and unsettling increase in borrowing costs. Take a moment to let this sink in. The average interest rate for new car loans was flirting with around 4% before the pandemic. Fast forward to today, and that rate has nearly doubled, soaring to almost 10%. It's even worse for used car loans, which have seen even steeper surges, with average annual percentage rates exceeding 11%. Some borrowers with less than stellar credit ratings may even find themselves staring down estimates approaching a staggering 14.5%. Now let's break this down into monthly payments, because that's where the rubber meets the road. The rising interest rates don't just exist in some abstract realm, they manifest directly into higher monthly payments, hitting consumers right where it hurts. Imagine taking out a $30,000 loan at a cool 3% interest rate. You'd be looking at monthly payments of about $1,050 over 5 years. But now, picture that same loan ballooning to about $650 per month at a near 10% interest rate. That's a staggering jump, one that can throw a household's budget into disarray and shake financial stability to its core. Now let's talk about a crucial issue that's making waves in the automotive financing world: lender limitations that disproportionately benefit high credit borrowers while leaving others out in the cold. whole, the lending landscape has shifted dramatically in recent times, largely as a reaction to rising interest rates that are hitting consumers like ton of bricks. This evolving scenario is creating substantial barriers for many individuals who are just trying to secure a vehicle that meets their needs. The VIP Club of Finance. Let's take a closer look at the policies of captive lenders. These financial institutions, closely tied to automotive manufacturers, often present favorable financing terms, but only for those with high credit scores. It's like a VIP club that many are locked out of. If you've got a less than stellar credit score or a limited credit history, guess what? You're at a significant disadvantage. Instead of getting competitive rates, you might be facing much higher interest rates, or worse yet, being denied financing altogether. It's a frustrating reality that many potential buyers are finding themselves in, and it underscores a growing inequity in the lending realm. Now, let's not forget the people who feel the brunt of these lending practices. Low-income borrowers. This group, often already struggling to make ends meet, is disproportionately impacted by the restrictive policies set forth by these lenders. As borrowing costs continue to rise, access to affordable financing becomes more and more elusive. Imagine trying to secure reliable transportation when every attempt feels like running into a brick wall. The combination of high vehicle prices and elevated interest rates creates the perfect storm that pushes affordable vehicle ownership even further out of reach. It's like being stuck in a never-ending cycle of despair, where the dream of owning a car feels increasingly unattainable and frustrating. This growing gap between who can afford what in the market isn't just an inconvenience, it affects lives. Reliable transportation is essential for so many aspects of day-to-day living, from getting to work to running errands and accessing healthcare. When low-income individuals and those with poor credit are squeezed out of the market, it puts a serious strain on their ability to achieve stability and independence. We're not just talking about cars here, we're discussing access to opportunities that others take for granted. So what are the possible solutions? As consumers grapple with an increasingly daunting affordability crisis when it comes to buying vehicles, it's high time that manufacturers take notice. The harsh reality is that the current market conditions demand a strategic overhaul. Acknowledging these challenges isn't just a smart move, it's a necessity for survival in today's competitive automotive landscape. Manufacturers need to fully recognize the gravity of the situation. The path forward lies in prioritizing the production of more affordable internal combustion engines and hybrid models. By diversifying their offerings to include budget-friendly options, manufacturers stand to cater to a broader audience. This isn't just about addressing current consumer demand, it's also a powerful way to bolster brand loyalty among cost-conscious buyers who are seeking value without sacrificing quality. Balancing profit margins is key here. Sure, high-margin luxury vehicles might currently dominate sales strategies, but that doesn't mean manufacturers can afford to overlook accessibility. Emphasizing affordable models can be a game changer, capturing market segments that are increasingly being sidelined due to those pesky rising prices. Imagine appealing to first-time buyers or families who are looking for dependable vehicles without the hefty price tag. They're out there and they want to be seen. Now, let's talk about innovative financing solutions, because this is where the real magic happens. To make car ownership accessible to a wider audience, manufacturers need to explore flexible financing options. This could involve partnering with financial institutions to craft tailored financing solutions that cater to differing credit profiles. Think lower interest rates for first-time buyers or customers with limited credit histories. These initiatives could open doors that were once firmly shut. Now we want to hear from you. How has your experience been in the car market lately? Let us know in the comment below.